continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Frankie Corrado, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We got a big hour. Scott Hartnell will join us here in a few moments. Role play level of concern later in the hour, where one of us will be playing the role of Bill Belichick.
Ooh.
And it sounds as if Bill and the University of North Carolina are closing in on a contract that will see him be the head coach of a college team. Wow. I am absolutely floored by this. Like, I cannot reason with it. I can't make any sense of it. This is arguably the greatest coach in professional sports history. You can make that argument. He's certainly on a short list.
Yes.
Certainly on a short list. Deciding after a year off, I'm not going to chase the wins record, which he's chasing, and we all thought was a priority for him. I'm going to go to North Carolina, not a football factory, nowhere close to it, and take over a college program and have to recruit and have to deal with the portal and have to deal with paying players, young players who are getting a lot of money. Like, it's not college like it was 20 years ago where you go in there and you run the show and you're the man and you can do whatever you want. These players don't like Bill Belichick. They're like, screw it, I'm out of here. I'll go somewhere else and get paid.
And having to talk to them, Hayes. Like, isn't that the craziest thing? That he's going to have to actually talk to young football players because, and I know you talk to Luke all the time. You talk to guys that played in the NFL. You didn't even look at him if you were a rookie or a young guy. It was like, you don't exist. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, now that's all he's going to be dealing with. And he's going to recruit guys. Not only is he going to have to talk to them, he's going to have to give them, like, the hard sell as to why you should come here. And then he's going to lose out on those to, like, Alabama. Like, how does he handle that? I think it's bizarre on so many levels.
Okay, so here's my initial thoughts right away. What is the number? Is it 20? Like, did they go, here's $20 million?
It may be. It may be.
It
and
could
we
be,
talked
right?
about his son being connected to the program. There's a belief that there's a Bronny James element to this, that his son could take over at some point down the road.
Right. So that's my first thought is cash is king, and he's probably getting a boatload to do it. Now, he's got a boatload, I'm sure, and all of that, but cash is king. Secondly, isn't his girlfriend like 24 years old?
Yes. She might be majoring at
I was just going to say, like, maybe that, like,
PhD.
He is a guy. He is a guy that is relating to younger people, and conversely,
he's relating to younger people now
by dating a 24-year-old.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Here's the
Here's
third
my skinny
thing.
jeans, kids.
Yeah. Here's a video of me coming out of my girlfriend's house at 6 o'clock in the morning with no tarp on.
That is relatable for a lot of college people.
Here's the last thing. If you're the other way, this is a legendary coach who's saying, like, he's going to have to listen, or he's going to have to listen to these young players. Do these young players not want to go and be coached by arguably the greatest coach of all time? Like, he's a draw, is he?
For
not?
sure he would be. For sure. Listen, it's the era of, like, superstar coaches in college sports. Look what Deion Sanders has done in Colorado. Like, he has built that program up. I think they went 9-3 this year. That was a program that was never on the radar of basically anything. Now, a lot of that is because his son is a superstar quarterback. Like, that's another thing. Like, Shedeur is, like, he may go first overall in the draft this year. He's that good. So that helps that Deion's got his son as a – and he's got that Travis Hunter kid who's probably going to win the Heisman. But Hunter came there because of Deion. So that's the question. Can Belichick get recruits to flip where historically they would go to Alabama or they would go to Michigan or Ohio State? Are they, within the region, they'd maybe go to Clemson in past years. Are they going to start going to North Carolina? I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you're North Carolina, that's what you're banking on. You're paying him a fortune. You're bringing in an icon, and you're banking on Bill Belichick alone bringing relevancy to your program. But I never in a million years would have seen this coming. Like a year ago when he was you knew he was at the end with New England. You knew it was going to be over. I thought he'd get right back in. We thought he was going to go to Atlanta, and he did not end up getting that job. And then he's on every media platform on earth for the better part of 6 months, and now he takes a college job.
He's everywhere now, man.
Everywhere.
It's like he did the Belichick personality tour, where it's like, hey, people kind of have their thoughts about me, but I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to come across as, who I want to be. But at the end of the day, okay, he's not back in the NFL, and doesn't part of you wonder, like, did they not really want you? Because you would think someone would pursue Belichick hard enough where it's like, just, Bill, blank check, whatever
Exactly.
you need to make us a good team. Like, how does that situation not come up for Bill Belichick, and now he's at UNC?
It's a legitimate question. Is this him also looking at it thinking, I may not get in to the NFL again or not get into the place I want to be in? Because that was what was believed, that at some point some team would say, here you go, take over a whole program. And maybe it finally dawned on him. The owners have effectively turned on him in the NFL. Or no owner was going to give him carte blanche. He'd have to come in and be a regular coach and prove himself again. And he decided, forget that. I'm going to detour and go down to Carolina and be the king. And that's what he'll be. He will run the whole program. Like an athletic director is not going to knock on his door and be like, Bill, you think you could do this differently? He's going to have carte blanche down there. But it's a wild story. So someone will play the role of Bill Belichick later in the hour. But there's a lot going on in the NHL. A couple of games tonight, big one, Buffalo, New York. Someone's got to win. Sabres and Rangers, someone's got to win. And to chat about it, we're joined now by longtime NHLer, NHL Network analyst here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Back on OverDrive, here's Scott Hartnell. How you doing, Scott?
I'm wonderful. How are you guys?
We're doing well, man. What do you make of this battle up in Western New York tonight? Sabres, Rangers. What's on the line for both teams?
I don't even want to say Laviolette's job, but the way they've been playing, man, it's kind of do or die for them. They've they're over 500 still. The Sabres have kind of they've been kind of the mediocre team. Great games, terrible games, but the Rangers, man, I kind of you pick them always to be at the top of the Eastern Conference, right? And they just kind of haven't, been delivering here the last 3 weeks, right? So it's frustrating for them. But my heart's kind of with Lavi. He was probably my favorite coach in the NHL here in Philadelphia. My last year in Nashville. So I'm pulling for them to. I don't even want to say that. Philly fans will probably be mad at me that I'm cheering for the Rangers right now. Actually, so I better watch my mouth.
No kidding. But yeah, you were a part of that strange Laviolette fired after 3 games scenario. You were on that team, right, in Philly?
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was wild because
go ahead.
It was wild because we had a great season the year before. We lost against the Devils, I believe, in the second round the year before, and then we came into training camp and we changed everything. Our system, our we were offensive. We're just go. We signed Vincent Lecavalier. We're going to score a bunch of goals a games, and then Lavi kind of switched our systems to be more defensive, right? To make sure we're staying back and this and that, protect the house, and that was kind of not the way that we were built with our players. With Carter and Richards and Danny B and myself, and kind of go on and on, right? We just wanted to obviously play defense. That's kind of the name of the game, but we wanted to go on the offense and score goals, but. I think our exhibition, we were 1-7 or 8, so it was kind of we were struggling, right? And we had meetings with Lavi and say, hey, I don't know why we're changing what have worked the last couple of years, right? And we started 0-3, and that was so it was almost like we were 1-10, right, to kind of start the season, even though there was rookies playing and things like that. So it was a little tricky situation, and then. Craig Berube steps in and he was, we're going to check, we're going to do this, obviously different things, blah, blah, blah. But it was, Craig Berube was good for us, obviously. And then he got fired, went to St. Louis, wins the cup. And now he's with you guys up in TO and having a heck of a start to, his career.
What's your read on how Laviolette would be handling all this kind of stuff? Because, you talk to guys that played for him, you played for him, you hear he wants to play up-tempo, it's giddy-up-and-go style hockey, and the New York Rangers can do that, but they really leak oil defensively. How much attention would he be paying to that, and can he get that message across to the top players to really buy into that in New York?
Well, it seems like a few of their top dogs, especially I don't want to single out any guys, but Zibanejad, you watch his games and, the Flyers have played them and, he had an empty net with a minute and a half to go against the Flyers and just kind of duffed it off the side of the net instead of burying a top shelf where there was so much net. It's just kind of not like him, right? So he's struggling big time, just kind of, I don't think they found their kind of, cohesiveness, their kind of the lines that they're going to run with. So it's been a little tricky for them scoring goals. They're not giving up a bunch, right? Shesterkin's making big saves. They lose to Chicago. He saves a breakaway with 5 minutes left to go in the game, and keep it at a 2-1 game, and they just can't get that equalizer to tie it up. So it's not just the end of the games or whatever. You got to start better. You got to defend better. You got to score goals. You got to capitalize on your chances. And it just seems like they're all kind of stung right now. And it's unfortunate business for a coach or whatever, a team, right? That's you can't score goals, you're not going to win hockey games. That's if you can't keep the puck out of your net, you're not going to win hockey games either. So it's kind of like both of those kind of variances are going to kind of screw a team and maybe a coach's bench boss, right?
Yes, I mean, do you feel like the team is waiting for a shoe to drop too? Because obviously the Jacob Trouba situation is, they trade him, but they've cleared up some cap space. But to me, it's okay. What are you doing with that cap space? You bringing somebody in? Like, it's easy to blame the coach, and yes, we can circle Zibanejad. I mean, Keandre Miller is a guy that's taken some fire, as a guy who hasn't turned the corner as an elite guy. When a team is kind of on pins and needles and you're still waiting for something to happen, because it's, the trade of the captain, but now is it, okay, you're going to fire the coach, or is it going to bring somebody else in? To me, that can be disruptive, and they just look like a distracted team. When you lose against Chicago 2-1, I was watching that game. It was uninspired. They almost looked afraid to lose instead of trying to win. Do you feel like they're just waiting for something else to happen as well?
Well, you look at I compare New York Rangers kind of right now with the Nashville Predators, right? They're last in the league, I believe. Last time I looked, Andrew Brunette is a hell of a coach. He's a great offensive coach. He's got a great hockey mind. Look what he did in New Jersey when he took over in Florida there, blah, 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 right? He's a really good player. They signed these guys this summer and just hasn't worked out, right? And whether it's chemistry, whether it's this, whether it's that, it's just kind of they're struggling. They're stuck in the mud, right? And it's you fire a coach, you bring someone else in. It's not going to fix it, right? You have to kind of do it together. You might have to have some, grind it out in the trenches or whatever to get things going. Lavi's had a great couple of years there, and now they're in the mud a little bit. So do you just cutthroat him and try and move on and maybe try and save the season, or do you believe in this guy? And if I was Chris Drury and looking at Lavi and how well he coaches, how he can inspire players, how he can, get the group kind of assembled. I don't know what's going on in that room or what have you, but I believe in Lavi that he can kind of fix his team and get going. But it's kind of crazy. But if you're a player and you're waiting for something to happen or bring the savior in, it's not going to happen in the cap world. You're not going to bring in a Brady Tkachuk and not lose any players and all that kind of stuff, right? It's on you guys. You guys got to look in the mirror, and that was my biggest thing. It was like, did I give everything in practice to make sure I was the hardest working player? That was what my parents said to me when I was a kid. Are you the hardest working player in practice every day? And that's kind of how I, kind of grew up, right? Just giving it all, like working on every battle, trying to score every shot, and it was just inbred in me, right? And that's kind of what I brought to, I think to the NHL and to my teammates and things like that. So it's those guys got to look in the mirror and say, hey, did I give it my all today?
With Scott Hartnell, and you mentioned Brady Tkachuk. Ottawa's at home against Anaheim. Man, they need one tonight. It's almost a must-win for them as well. They're trying to break the mold there, haven't been in the playoffs in 6 years, and trying to break the Toronto, Florida, Tampa, Boston four-pack that have owned this division for quite some time. Brady's been in the news because of the soft tampering stuff and the Rangers connection. What would you expect to see out of Tkachuk tonight? And, how important do you think the rest of this year is for him to drag this team, if he has to, the Ottawa Senators, into the playoffs?
Yeah, it's wild, right? We've been saying this for probably 2 or 3 years. Which team? Is it Buffalo? Is it Detroit? Or is it Ottawa that's going to make the playoffs? And none of them
do.
Even come close to. Yeah, not even close, right? Like they're not even in the wild card race. That's the wild part for me, right? Like you should have some momentum to build these teams, and the skill in Ottawa, the young kids in Buffalo as well too. And it's just like, holy smokes! Like how are you guys not? Like in the mix every single year. So something's up. I'm not sure what it is, but every game is huge right now. Everyone's like, oh, the last 3 weeks of the season, blah 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 blah. But if you are pissing away points right now against an Anaheim team for Ottawa, for example, you're not going to make the playoffs if you let this one slide, right? And that's when maybe something does happen with personnel or what have you. But for me, it's you got to win the games that you have to win. That you should win, and you kind of build on that, and then you surprise some teams. Then you can come out, and have a 4 or 5 game winning streak, right? You gotta win 8 out of 10, 2 or 3 times out of the year to come out of a hole and try and make the playoffs. So they gotta obviously sharpen up as well.
If you looked at the Eastern Conference standings right now in the second wild card position, you would see the Philadelphia Flyers, a team you're obviously very close to, played there a long time. What do you make of the Flyers? And I guess more importantly than that, has Michkov been as advertised, or has he kind of exceeded your expectations this year?
Yeah, no, I do the Flyers pre-intermissions and post stuff, so I watch all their games. And the young kid, 19-year-old rookie, not knowing any English, you can't really talk to him, obviously, but I know guys absolutely love him, right? If you watch closely their games, someone comes near him, there's 3 or 4 guys kind of sticking up for him. He's doing that for other guys. So there's a little bit of love in that dressing room, right, to protect this guy. He was I would call it piped in quotations by John Tortorella for 2 games in a row. Maybe 12 games into the season, just kind of wasn't up to snuff, wasn't up to, playing like Tortorella wanted him to play, right? And after those games, he's been on fire. He's got a bunch of multi-point games here. He's just kind of he's one of those guys that sinks the game, way better than a really good, say a really good skater, right? Like a guy could skate like the wind or whatever. He doesn't have the speed that's going to blow you away like a McDavid or a Matthews or whatever, but he could put passes into places that not maybe 10 or 12 other guys in the NHL can put these passes. Look, for example, last night against Columbus, the Frost goal, he just kind of laid one into him. He beat 2 or 3 guys to the front of the net, shot it, got the rebound, put in the back of the net, right? So this guy can make plays like a Kaprizov, I guess, would probably be the closest example. Both small guys, both not super fast, but just can dangle and hold on to the puck and things like that. So I wasn't sold actually the first 10, 15 games, but since he had the benching there, he's really come out strong and looked really, really good for the Flyers.
He got kicked out the other night, and he signed a fan's water bottle.
That's awesome.
I guess the backstory is when he was going out, the guy, I think it was a kid or whatever, said, "Can you sign it?" And he said, after. And then he gets kicked out, and he stops and signs it. Have you ever seen anything like, you probably got kicked out, I'm sure, a bunch in your career, Scott. Would you ever stop and sign something on your way out of the rink?
It's actually a great story. So just to go on that story, I guess the kid spoke in Russian to him, so he kind of got caught off guard. So he did stop. He looked up, and the kid said something in Russian. I don't know if he was practicing Russian, say, "Can you sign this?" or whatever. So he did stop, and that's awesome. And Torts got asked it in the morning skate, and he didn't know what the heck the reporter asked him or whatever. But my funniest thing, I was in Pittsburgh at the Igloo. It was a shootout, like one of the first couple of years, and it went to 9 shooters, and I hadn't gone yet. I was like, a little nervous, obviously. And sure enough, they shot first, they score. So I got picked the next guy, so I have to score. So I go in there, puck starts bouncing, wobbling on me. I had my move already picked out in my head, right? Fake shot back at the shelf. So I fake the shot, it starts bouncing. Bounces over my stick again. I hit the goalie, run over the goalie, and the exit to our dressing room is right to the left, if you can imagine this. So I hit the goalie, net's off. I go, right down the tunnel. I, swing my stick or whatever, and I hear this guy. He had this jersey. It said "fart smell" instead of Hartnell, and number 19 Flyers jersey, whatever. And I was so mad. I was, in there first. My gear was off, and literally, 90 seconds probably, right? And we got a point or whatever, and I go up there. So I went back out to the tunnel after I kind of calmed down, and I kind of went out there, looked around, and I'm like, "Hey, where's my stinkiest fan?" He's like, "Oh, hey, you heard me," So I ended up signing his jersey, to my stinkiest fan, Scott Hartnell. So that That was my one story. I didn't do it right after because I was flashing red, as you can imagine, but. I went back afterwards. So kind of a fun memory. It's all about the fans too, right? Like, if he walks by this young kid and, he didn't, right? He goes up there, signs his water bottle, and the kid is going to remember this thing. That's the whole thing about us hockey players or, the players that are playing now. Those little things that you do for these kids, for the girls, for the parents, this and that, throw a puck to a kid in a warm-up. It's like it just makes their night, it makes their week, it makes their month, it makes their year, right? So it really kind of makes them kind of try to achieve something or be a hockey player, whatever it is, right? And it's just so cool for Michkov, who has been here for 2 months and playing in this NHL, and he does that. I thought it was super, super cool for him and the kid that got his water bottle autographed by Michkov. So it's probably up in a little shelf in his room, and it's just awesome stuff.
It was so awesome. Yeah, that's a really cool story. It's always great catching up with you, Scott. We appreciate you doing this, and we'll do it again down the road.
Yeah, thank you guys. Anytime.
You got it. Scott Hartnell joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Such a great story.
Fart smell.
Like, just Eddie signs it.
He signs it. Like, I would be so mad.
To get it. Imagine going to get that thing made. You go to the store, like, I want fart smell 19, and here's $300.
Right, an official jersey. And you can picture him because he played with an edge and an attitude. Hartnell was always on edge. He was such a good player. But I can picture him being so pissed, like, fumbling the puck, running over the goal. You're probably embarrassed.
I think Hartnell used to do something where if he fell during a game, he would donate
Hartnell
a certain amount. Hartnell down because he would fall all the time. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
But Michkov, I was looking up stats on him today. He's leading rookies in stats, but also like even strength points. Like, there's a bit of a race. Celebrini's been really good, and Hudson's put up numbers clearly in Montreal, and Dustin Wolf in Calgary. But for my money, if it was handed out tonight, I mean, Michkov has got to be the Calder. Has to be the Rookie of the Year. Look at how important he's been. He's scoring OT winners all the time for a Philly team that's in transition right now.
He's been great, and you're right. Like, now, I don't know, Hayes, if it would your philosophy come in if they make it into the playoffs, then you lean that way because he's been impactful for a team that is, playing, we'll call it meaningful hockey, where, San Jose isn't in that picture, right? So Celebrini. I've seen them both live. Like, I think Celebrini is like, he's wow. And so is Michkov. But I told you, like, the night I watched Michkov, he's an opportunist, right? There's a little bit of laziness to his game, but I think he's got elite skill as well. I don't think there's a bad answer with this. It's just it'll be interesting to see how this falls, as we go down the stretch with meaningful hockey. If they were completely tied statistically, would you lean Michkov because of the playoff situation?
Possibly, I don't think that should hurt your case. It should. Right. It should. Generally speaking, with the Calder, it's usually a player on a bad team. Generally speaking, it is a phenom coming up. They went for like Bedard last year, where wins and losses are largely irrelevant because you're so young. You're probably not on a great team. So it's more of a like most outstanding rookie instead of valuable rookie. And yet I think value to your team in bigger, more important situations should count for something. So I think Michkov probably should be helped by that, or Celebrini shouldn't be hurt if his team doesn't have it. But it's still a long season to go. I mean, this could go up and down. There's, like we said, Lane Hudson in Montreal, Dustin Wolf, Logan Stankoven's had a good rookie year. He qualifies. There's a number of them.
The Hudson thing is wild. Like we pull up, stats and boards for the games all the time. We're trying to find new things, and every time you look at offensive stats with this guy, he's in the top 3 to 5 with like Hughes, Makar, and Fox. It's really eye-opening when you see it put that way, that he's not even 30 games into his NHL career or 30 games in, and the guy's already in that kind of company. As far as like the smaller day-to-day stuff, like there's a lot of runway. We'll see what he turns into, but I mean, it's not easy to hang with those guys, and he's consistently doing it in so many different categories. He's a special player.
That's where I was going to bring up, too. The Canadian market might push him over the top into those conversations, right? Montreal is a big market. They've got a lot of play. They get a lot of fan push. I would argue that Hudson might have a little insight on that as far as, he's a guy that's watched every night. Regardless of where the Canadians are in the standings, Montreal has a giant fan base.
He's probably got to score, though. I think he's got to, he can't win the Calder with a goose egg, right? You can't have 51 assists, no goals, and win the Calder. I don't think. That would be tough.
That would be crazy.
You have to sneak in a goal. There's also the element that I think it's more difficult as a rookie defenseman, where Michkov is taking advantage on the wing, and he's playing up the lineup, and he's a power play merchant. He's doing stuff on 5-on-5, but it's easier to kind of gloss over the deficiencies of his game, to your point, Noodles, where Hudson's out there playing 25 minutes a night.
Against
he played 30 minutes one game this year, over 30 minutes one game. It was
you can't hide from any of that. And listen, there have been times where he's been exposed defensively. That has happened, where he's got burned or he's got pushed off pucks, and that's going to happen. But I think, again, being on a good team should count for something. I think the position he plays should count for something. And I think Hudson should be in a better position to make his case because of the position he's playing, especially with the points and the minutes that he's putting up, because it really is crazy how many minutes he's playing basically every night. So, it looks like it's pretty much done here. Bill Belichick to North Carolina.
Wow.
We'll get into that. Jays made a trade yesterday, and, defense and base running, quite elite. And the question is, are they ever going to hit a home run again? Are they going to bring in anyone that even resembles Power? Jimenez is a good player. It's an upgrade based on the roster that they have today compared to where it was, a couple of days ago. But they still have got to add. They've got to find a way to compete in the American League East with arms. We saw Max Fried and what happened there, and we saw Crochet got traded to the Red Sox today. He's a stud. So you got to figure out what you're going to do with the rotation, the bullpen, third base, maybe left field. There's a lot that still has to happen here. So more on that still to come as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
You can never, ever ask me to stop drinking. Do you understand?
I do. I really do.
All right, role play level of concern brought to you by Boston Pizza's new game day menu. Stop by your local BP for $7 touchdown pints, shareables for the whole crew, and weekly prizing up for grabs. Football game days are better at your local BP. All right, it is official. Bill Belichick is the head coach of North Carolina.
Love it.
And Noodles, you're playing the role of Bill Belichick. What is your level of concern? Coaching in college could tarnish your legacy.
Rick Bushwood. It's Rick Bushwood.
Six Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
But here's the thing. Let me follow up with that. I don't think he cares. I think he's a guy who's, put it this way. When you see him behind the scenes, I think he's different than his public persona. But I think, look at his life. He's dating a young girl. He's gotten caught on video with no tarp on. You're starting to see Bill Belichick the stone-faced, miserable old man, and then you're seeing behind the curtain, you're like, this guy could be a mess. We don't know what he is. So,
right.
You know what I mean? I think he doesn't care. I think, they've dangled some ridiculous check in front of him. He's going to go coach a college team, and I just don't think he cares about legacy as much as maybe we do or other people on the outside. But I do believe just on the surface, that's why it should be Rick Bushwood, because he should care. He's arguably the greatest coach of all time.
Absolutely. And if this is it, this is him declaring, I'm done with the NFL, which I think we'd all presume that's the case. You never know, but he's not a young guy. He's 72. You're going to go coach college for 3 or 4 years and then go back to the NFL? I find that hard to believe. If this is it, then you've established what you did throughout your professional career, and it's a different way of evaluating. But if you go to North Carolina and they're paying you a ton, and I do wonder if there's a realignment element to this. I believe they're still in the ACC. You know, they're going to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. Everything's like a mega conference thing now, and the college playoffs and all that. He's going to be expected to get them in, like to get them cooking as a program. And if that doesn't happen, and if players are like, I don't want to be around Bill Belichick, that's going to feel strange. You know, it's just if he doesn't have the aura of a guy that can have that kind of power at the collegiate level, then it's going to have a weird vibe to it. But it's like Back to School. Remember that Rodney Dangerfield
yes.
movie?
Remember he converted the dorm from like 3 small dorms into a huge dorm room, and like that movie was
awesome.
I love that movie.
Sam Kinison was in that movie. Had a great role in that. That's gonna be Belichick cruising around like a Porsche or Ferrari.
Doesn't the Belichick thing kind of feel like, you know, one of these great bands that have been around for decades? We know all the hits. You play them all the time. They made some terrible albums later in their careers, but you never talk about it. No one cares about it because you always just go back to the hits.
Yes.
Like, isn't that what it's going to be like with Belichick? We're just going to talk about the Super Bowls and the Pats, and hey, when it's all said and done, oh my God, I totally forgot this guy was at UNC. Like, yeah, you don't play those songs. You never hear them.
I think a very appropriate analogy, and it actually makes me think of a conversation I had with someone recently. It might have been my wife. About Taylor Swift, and I was completely off the beaten path. But that's coming for Taylor Swift, too.
She's going to be weathered and old and, you know, like...
yeah, as an artist, it's coming. Like, she's going to put out a couple albums where you're like, this is brutal. Like, like you can't connect with youth forever. You can't connect with whatever... And I know that's going to cause a storm now. People are going to freak out that I said that or we said that or that's our take on it. But it's just the truth. Every single artist ever eventually becomes, you know, moves into a different category. It's like you used to be great. Now you're playing your hits, but you're not expected to make new cutting-edge music anymore.
No,
it's not going to happen.
Fair. It's fair, and it's not disrespectful. I had this conversation because I told you guys my daughter went to Taylor Swift on the weekend for her 12th birthday. And we were driving to school. I was dropping her off, and she was like, Daddy, it was amazing. And I said, 4 years from now, you might not like her like you love her right now. I said, like, you know, that's just, oh, Daddy, I will always love her. You know, that's what she said. Like, I will always love her.
You go through cycles exactly with music. That's exactly it, man.
So I don't know. I mean, that's the bottom line is I think that she's going to be in a scenario where she'll move on to the next big artist, whatever it is.
Exactly.
You know,
shout out to Taylor Swift and the Eras Tour, but it's just a reality. Like Bill Belichick and other musicians and artists, over time, you know, it's about what you used to be and what you used to do. All right, Frankie, you're playing the role of golfers not named Scotty Scheffler. You see, Scheffler won Player of the Year. There was some debate. Should it have been him or Xander? Like, Schauffele won 2 majors, and Scheffler ran away with it. What is your level of concern that Scheffler is going to dominate in 2025 again, and there's simply nothing you can do about it?
Play it.
You can never, ever ask me to stop drinking.
Now, is it a little extreme to say play it? Sure. You know, like you just brought up the example of Xander Schauffele, who won 2 majors. Like, there's going to be players that win big tournaments that aren't Scotty Scheffler. But Scotty Scheffler's dominance from tee to green, no one can compete with that. And if this guy has been able to work over the fall, winter months, whatever you want to call it, on like making more putts, I don't know what more he can do. I don't know what more anyone else can do to compete with that. And if he has that dialed in and he's healthy, like, I just don't know how you stop this guy. Like, that's the only thing that you can really look to say, you know, that holds him back. And even with the putting that he had, he's always in the top 10. He's sniffing around it, and a lot of the times he's winning. So, I mean, it feels like he is as unstoppable of a golfer since Tiger.
I think that's the window that we're in right now. Now he's got the claw grip. He's rolling in everything inside 10 feet. He just lapped the field on Sunday at the Hero. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. All right, I'm playing the role of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Vladdy Jr.
Cha-ching.
Yes. What is my level of concern? Staying a Blue Jay long term is becoming less and less likely. Okay, I'm not going to play it, but I'm definitely not a pint on the patio. Like, there's no way you could be a pint on the patio. It is closer to Nick Cage. I'll throw a little Stevie Caldwell in there.
A couple of whiskeys and 5 or 6 beers.
Yeah, I'll mix it up, like kind of somewhere in the middle there, because like Go ahead. You want to answer this before I get to it?
I just want to jump in there. I'm leaning more Rick Bushwood towards you. Don't you think?
It's getting scarier as the Instagram posts continue to get out there. You see that Vladdy liked to post saying at least $500 million. I don't know what that's worth. Who knows what he's doing on Instagram? But Vladdy knows he's in the driver's seat. He's 25 years old. He's coming off, I wouldn't say a career year. I think in 21 he had a better statistical year, but this year he was close to it. And Soto just got $765 million. Is Soto better than Vladdy? Yes. Is he $400 million better? No, he's not. No. And Vladdy, it doesn't even matter how much better he is. It comes down to a marketplace and what people are willing to pay. And the fact that the Jays have not been out in front of this, the fact that Shapiro and Atkins and I guess ownership have not been willing or at any point really been pushing to get an answer as to whether or not he'll stay at a price would lead me to believe he's going to test the market. And maybe it's flipped. And I'm speaking as Vladdy. Maybe it's flipped where you've waited too long and I'm going to play it out. And maybe I'll sign with the Blue Jays next year after a great year if you pay me what I deserve to be paid. But I'm not giving you a discount. I'd like to be here. I think Vladdy's made that very, very clear, and I think he's being genuine. I think he's very comfortable in Toronto. I think he loves being a Blue Jay, but he's not giving them a discount. And, a year ago it was $285 million, and then during the season it was $300, and then at the end of the year it was $325. It legitimately may have gone up like $100 million plus because of Juan Soto, and the Blue Jays missed their opportunity to get out in front of it. And I don't know if the Jays are going to be comfortable paying him. I don't know if they see him that way. I don't know if this front office will be. What I'm curious is if the owner will step in. And I'm playing the role of Vladdy. I'm calling out Rogers right here, right now. Do you want me or not? Because you got the money. You've proven you got it for Juan. You prove it, you got it for Shohei. Maybe Ross doesn't see it. Maybe Mark doesn't see it. This is a scenario where I wonder if the owner comes over the top and goes, pay him whatever you have to pay him. Do not let him go. Because if he walks on us and he goes down the street to Boston or New York or whatever, that is going to be so embarrassing.
And that's so where it's going, right? That's where it's going because Yankees wanted Soto, couldn't get him. Red Sox were meeting with Soto, couldn't get him. And it's like the Soto deal is – can't say it's one of one, but it really is one of one. Like Ohtani, I feel like is separate, although they're in the same ballpark money-wise. The Soto deal is different. Now, even if you take that away, there's still someone out of these group of teams that have a ton of dough that are going to be willing to pay this guy close to $500 million. Is there not?
I think so. If he has another great year.
Just because the bar has been raised so high, and they have the money to spend.
He's a star. His name, he has a legacy name. That goes a long way in marketing, too. Everyone knows Vladimir Guerrero. Everyone knows him. Everyone knows what he's about. And listen, there's a business and there's a discipline that has to come with it. I understand that. What position is he going to play? Is he going to stay healthy? Who is he consistently? Because he's been inconsistent throughout his career. All of these are reasonable questions that the Blue Jays have to ask and every other team in the league has to ask. But you need one owner. It could be Steve Cohen. It could be Cohen in New York.
Right.
Vladdy's really close with Soto by all accounts. I think him and Lindor, who knows? Maybe Cohen goes, screw it, man. Let's go way over the threshold. Just give him the 500. And let's bring them all here and let's win a World Series or two. And that wouldn't shock me.
Here's a question for both of you, though. What would be, regardless of what we believe, wouldn't you rather, and this is the wrong terming, but make a mistake and on an overpay with Vladdy and keep him? Or if we're talking, hey, you know what, the bar has moved and we believe he's worth $380 or $400, $410, $425, and he's asking for $500. You at least know the player. If it's an overpay,
exactly.
It's not like a gross overpay. It's an overpay to keep him and believe if you get him to 500. Where if he moves on and gets 500 somewhere else, all you're looking to do is replace that player, and he might get to 35, 40 home runs consistently every year. My point is maybe it's $100 million over a 12 or 15 year deal. Mm-hmm. That's the overpay. So it's 10 a year.
You're right. It's 8 to 10 to keep them. Exactly.
I don't want to be accused of any soft tampering here, but wouldn't it be hilarious if Vladdy did get to market, and all of a sudden we don't hear anything, and the Atlanta Braves are just going stealth mode, and they lock him up. Like, wouldn't that be the ultimate, like,
Him and Anthopoulos,
gotcha,
very well.
Gotcha, guys.
Yep,
You know,
Alex
thanks for everything. We'll take him.
Wouldn't that
See
be
ya.
something, man? They got Acuna for like $5, so they're not paying him anything.
That's
You know, you've got Matt Olson down there. Like that would be something if Atlanta came over the top, and Anthopoulos in particular. All right, we'll come back and continue role play. Noodles will be playing Barry Trotz. Frankie will be playing Connor McDavid.
Why do you make me
Barry Trotz is coming up. A role play level of concern continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, role play level of concern continuing here. And we teased Noodles playing the role of Barry Trotz. And as a result, we got to follow through, right? You say you're going to do it, you got to do it. We are men of integrity on this show. This is a tough one, too, I got to admit. It's a tough one, but I know you can handle this. You want me to take it? I can take it if you want to.
No, I want it, but I just know my answer already.
It's a tough one. What is your level of concern that Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault will simply never fit with the Preds?
Play it.
You can never, ever ask me to stop drinking.
And here's why I'm going to say this, because you said both of them.
Yes.
Because then one might come around quicker than the other. You know, when we had Barry on, Barry made a good point, and he said he did his research where it takes guys to settle in when they've been legacy players in other situations to settle into their new environment. One manager even told him it took a full year. Well, that's concerning because all it does is take a full year out of their career where they didn't sign 8-year deals, right? They're somewhat shorter.
4
deals,
years
right?
for Stamkos, I think 5 for Marchessault, I believe.
So, and by that time, it's too late, too little, too late, all of that. I do believe one of them will come around. I think Marchessault scored a 6 the other day, so he's kind of around it a little bit, but I am concerned. I mean, I have a personal bet with a buddy of mine in Alberta. I was like, I think Nashville's going to come back. They're going to push into a playoff spot. And you know what the bet is? The bet was cheese toast at this steakhouse in Calgary called Caesars. I love this one.
I've eaten there.
That's
they got the big fire pit in the middle of the restaurant, and you watch them cook the steak. It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
All right.
But I'm like, I bet you some cheese toast that Nashville's coming back. And every time I talk to him, he's like, cheese toast.
Oh, they lost 8 in a row. They lost again last year.
You're buying Noodles.
Yeah, I think you
buying
can basically prepay for that. They're 7-16-6, man. They're
not the best.
They're like 14 points out of the playoffs right now.
We called their game last week on Thursday, and boy, was that like uninspired hockey. Like there was nothing.
That was
like
Montreal
no life,
winning and
no
Line
jam.
returning. And
that was Line A's second game back, and like Montreal handily won.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
All right, Frankie, you're playing the role of Connor McDavid. Shout out to Summer McIntosh, who won the Northern Star
Northern
Award.
Star. Yeah.
The Northern Star Award, Canadian Athlete of the Year. And I don't think it's a surprise. Whenever there's an Olympic Games, I find more so with the Summer Games, if we have an Olympian that does great things at the Summer Games, it's over. It's just going to be a formality, and Summer was phenomenal. Summer McIntosh was great. But McDavid has never won this award. He just had 100 assists. He won the Conn Smythe in a losing effort. Frankie, what is your level of concern? You will never win the Northern Star Award.
2 Crown and Waters with a lime and a short glass.
Really?
I think. Yeah,
okay.
because if
I like that, yes.
Yeah.
It's making his own up. I love that.
The Frankie bar.
Yeah. If Connor McDavid wins a Stanley Cup and he has the points, which he's going to have because that would factor into McDavid winning a Stanley Cup or the Oilers and the Conn Smythe Trophy, if that happens and it's not an Olympic year, I don't know how you look past it. Because all the individual, milestones as far as points, goals, and then awards, and then you kind of put the cherry on top of the Stanley Cup in a Canadian market when we haven't won here in Canada in over 30 years. I think that's going to be too difficult to ignore. And listen, Edmonton was one win away from doing it last year. We all, I don't want to speak out of turn, I think we all believe at some point McDavid is going to win a Stanley Cup in his career. So with that being said, there's probably a good chance this guy's winning this award at some point.
Okay, I agree with everything you said, but I think he's got like a 2-year window. I don't think he grew up thinking I need to win the Northern Star Award. I don't think it's a high priority for him, but he's got this year, next year. I think the Olympic Games. If he's I don't think the Four Nations face-off does anything for him.
That'll
if they
not
win
push
that,
you over.
But if he wins if they win the Olympics next year, and he's the superstar of that, puts up big numbers. He's the face of the Olympic Games. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
With maybe he wins a Hart that year. But once you get to 30, 31, you're going to start slowing down a little bit. At some point, he's going to slow down a little bit. He's in his prime right now.
I agree. I also think that committee is always looking to think outside the box instead of what's in front of you.
Definitely.
It's hey, can we get this person that did this or whatever?
But that's why it's got to be a Stanley Cup, because if that's not included in the package, then he won't do it.
Yeah. No,
it's true though. It is true. There's a bunch of different voters, and everyone I'm sure has different cases and sound cases for who they think should win, but it always is overthinking it a little bit, and it's usually unique athletes in unique sports.
Right.
There's a lot of that too. It's too easy to give it to a hockey player, so you got to think beyond that. Role play level of concern brought to you by Boston Pizza's new game day menu. Stop by your local BP for $7 touchdown pints, shareables for the whole crew, and weekly prizing up for grabs. Football game days are better at your local BP. Tim Kirkjian coming up. Bobby Marks on the Scotty Barnes injury and what's going on with the Raptors, and some LeBron James rumors connecting him to a big powerhouse team out west. We'll tell you about that as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.